I was heading back from my cousin's place on the outskirts of town, taking the long, winding county road that cut through miles of farmland and forest. It was around 1:15 a.m., the kind of late where the only people awake are the ones working night shifts, insomniacs, and those who made the mistake of starting their drive too late. The weather had been foggy all day, but the damp chill in the air seemed thicker now. My headlights carved two narrow tunnels into the mist, the beams catching floating droplets that looked almost solid. Beyond the light, everything was swallowed in gray. The road was empty. No houses, no streetlights, just the occasional fence post flashing past and the suggestion of tree lines in my peripheral vision. I wasn't high, but exhaustion had begun to wrap itself around me like a heavy blanket. I turned the radio up, more for company than entertainment. I've always hated this stretch of road. Even in daylight, it feels forgotten. No painted lines, no signs, except for the occasional faded speed limit marker leaning at an angle. At night, it felt like driving through somewhere that wasn't entirely part of the real world anymore. I was about halfway home when I noticed the shape ahead of me. At first, I thought it was a mailbox, until it moved. Slowly, deliberately. A dark figure stepped out from the right side of the road and stopped directly in my lane. I tapped the brakes, hard enough for my seatbelt to tighten across my chest. The fog distorted distance. I couldn't tell if they were 10 feet away or 50. My high beams caught their outline and my stomach twisted. They were tall, too tall maybe, wearing something dark that hung loose from their body. No reflective gear, no flashlight, nothing to suggest they had a reason to be walking there, just standing still, facing me. I considered stopping. I considered swerving around them, but something in my brain, the deep animal part, was screaming not to slow down more than I already had. As I got closer, I realized their head wasn't upright. It was tilted sharply to the side, like they were trying to peer at something on the ground. Or maybe they were listening. I passed them going 35 miles per hour, keeping my eyes forward. I didn't look into the side mirror. I didn't need to, because the second I passed, I heard them. Footsteps, heavy ones, slapping against wet asphalt. I pressed the gas. My heart thudded in my chest, my hands locking tighter round the steering wheel. I knew it was impossible. No one can keep up with a car going over 40, but the sound didn't fade. Then the sound shifted. It was no longer behind me. It was beside me. I didn't want to look, but the pressure in my peripheral vision was unbearable. I glanced left. Through the fog, I saw a shape keeping pace with me. Not on the ground, but above it. Just high enough that their feet, or whatever they were, didn't touch the road. Their face was inches from the glass, pale and expressionless, eyes locked on mine. They mouthed something I couldn't hear. Or maybe they weren't mouthing words at all, just opening their mouth wider and wider until it looked like it might split their jaw. I jerked my eyes back to the road and floored it. My old Honda rattled in protest as I pushed it past what felt safe on that twisting county lane. I didn't look to see if they were still there. After a few miles, my exit came into view. I didn't signal, didn't slow until the last possible second, then swerved onto the ramp and took it at a speed that would have earned me a ticket in daylight. When I finally merged onto the main highway, my rearview mirror was empty. The fog seemed thinner here, the road more real. I told myself it was exhaustion, a trick of the light, maybe even sleep paralysis while still awake, but I can still feel the weight of those eyes on me when I think about it. And I swear, some nights when the fog rolls in, I hear those heavy footsteps again, matching my speed just out of sight. If you ever see someone standing in the middle of the road that late at night, don't slow down more than you have to. And whatever you do, don't look for them after you pass. Oh, hey, before I forget, sir, you got a second to help me out? The man behind the counter, a tall, wiry fellow in a faded trucker cap, stopped scanning my bag of jerky, an energy drink, and a pack of Marlboros. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he wasn't sure if I was joking. Sure. What is it? I pulled the folded paper map from my jacket pocket and set it on the counter between us. Got a little turned around. I was headed toward Fairmont. Figured I'd cut through on some back roads. Bad idea. Now I'm trying to get back to Route 14. Could you point me in the right direction? He looked down at the map like it was some alien artifact. Not many folks still carry these. I gave a half smile. Old habits. He sighed, leaned over, and jabbed a grease-stained finger at a point on the map. We're here. Closest way to 14 is to follow this road, about 10 miles. Hang a left at the old mill. You'll see a sign. I circled the spot with my pen, folded the map, and slipped it back into my jacket. Appreciate it. He rang me up, muttered the total, and handed me my change. When I turned for the door, I caught him staring at me with an odd expression. Not suspicion, not exactly concern. More like he wanted to say something, but didn't. Outside, the summer night was heavy with the scent of pine and something faintly metallic. My '88 Chevy idled at the pumps, its headlights spilling pale cones of light onto the asphalt. I slid into the driver's seat. Get us back on track, came a voice from the passenger side. Yeah, I said, handing the bag over. Left at the mill. Mason, my co-worker, buddy, and occasional drinking partner, tore open the jerky. Perfect. I'm starving. I started the truck, the V8 rumbling to life, and pulled out onto the empty road. The store's neon sign faded in the rear view until we were swallowed by trees. The first few miles were uneventful. A little static on the radio, the occasional moth flaring in the headlights. But the further we drove, the darker it got. No streetlights, no houses, just the black wall of forest pressing in. You ever notice how quiet it gets out here? Mason said. I glanced at him. We're in the middle of nowhere. What did you expect? Traffic? He chuckled, but it was short-lived. Somewhere around the 6th mile, I spotted movement. A shape. It stepped into the road so suddenly, I barely had time to slam the brakes. Tires screamed, the truck fishtailed, and for a second, I thought we were going to spin out. We stopped sideways across the asphalt, my hands locked white on the wheel. What the hell was that? Mason's voice was sharp. I threw it in park, killed the engine, and climbed out. The beams from the headlights sliced across empty pavement. No deer, no person, no anything. But I knew what I'd seen. A man standing dead center in the lane, head tilted like he was listening. I swallowed. There was somebody here. Mason joined me, scanning the tree line with his phone light. Well, he's gone now. That was when I felt it, the prickling at the back of my neck. Like being watched, we got back in the truck without another word. I locked the doors, restarted the engine, and accelerated hard. The road twisted once, then straightened. For a long time, nothing moved outside the windows, but my eyes kept catching shadows that didn't match the trees. Then the sign appeared. Fairmont. 2 miles. Relief washed through me. We passed it, and Mason let out a low laugh. Finally! But not even 2 minutes later, another sign loomed in the headlights. Fairmont. 2 miles. My stomach turned. That's not possible, I muttered. We kept driving. The odometer climbed. And then, the same sign again. Mason stared out the window, his voice tight. I think we're going in circles. The third time we passed it, there was someone standing just beyond the sign. A man in dark clothes, perfectly still, watching us. I didn't slow down. We passed again. Now there were 3 figures. Again. 5. Each loop. More of them gathered. Just inside the tree line, faces pale, eyes catching the light in flat, glossy flashes. Mason didn't speak until the 7th pass. They're closer. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles ached. I know. On the 10th, the nearest figure stepped into the road, the same man I'd braked for earlier. In the split second before we blew past, I saw his mouth open far too wide, teeth like broken glass. The radio cut out. The dash clock froze at 1:16 a.m. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Claire, my girlfriend. Who's Mason? The headlights caught his face as he turned toward me, and he smiled. About 3 nights ago, I was heading home from a small mountain town where my cousin lives. It was around midnight when I started the drive back, about 2.5 hours through winding 2-lane roads with barely any cell service. I wasn't worried though. I had a thermos of coffee, a working GPS, and an old playlist to keep me company. The first hour was fine. Quiet. The kind of quiet you notice only when you're driving alone at night. No streetlights, no cars, just the faint hum of my tires and the occasional owl darting over the road. But about 30 minutes in, something strange happened. The GPS on my phone glitched, froze completely. It still showed the road I was on, but the blue arrow that tracked me had stopped moving. I figured I'd fix it at the next stop, so I kept going. That's when I noticed the headlights behind me. At first, I was relieved. Another car meant I wasn't completely alone out here. But after a few minutes, I realized something was off. The headlights stayed exactly the same distance from me, not gaining, not falling back. I tapped my brakes once to see if they'd respond. Nothing. No slowing down, no turning off. The road was winding, and every curve made me expect them to pass, but they never did. Always the same distance, always perfectly aligned. Eventually, we hit a stretch where the road straightened out. I glanced in the mirror, and my stomach dropped. They weren't headlights. They were 2 small, pale orbs, about the size of fists, floating in the dark. No car, no shape, no glow around them. Just those 2 pale spheres keeping pace with me. I told myself I was just tired. My eyes were playing tricks on me. I cranked the radio up, drank more coffee, and looked straight ahead. Then my engine cut out. No sputtering, no warning lights, just silence. The power steering went stiff, and my headlights flickered twice before dying. The only illumination came from those 2 pale orbs in my rearview mirror, now gliding closer. I coasted to a stop on the shoulder. My breathing got fast and shallow, and I could feel the weight of the night pressing in on me. I tried the ignition. Nothing. Not even a click. For a moment, everything was still. Then, from somewhere in the woods to my right, came a sound I'll never forget. A slow, wet dragging. Something heavy being pulled through leaves and dirt. The orbs outside my rear window rose higher, as if whatever held them had stood up. They hovered for a second, then began moving around to the driver's side. I locked the doors. My hands were slick with sweat, fumbling for my phone, but the screen was black, completely dead, even though it had been at 70% battery earlier. I heard it at my door, not knocking, breathing. Heavy, uneven breathing, like someone trying not to cough. I couldn't bring myself to look. There was a faint tap on the glass, then another. Then the sound of fingernails dragging slowly down the window. Finally, I forced myself to glance. There was no face outside, just two pale orbs pressed against the glass. They weren't lights. They were eyes, huge, round, and milky white, reflecting nothing. I screamed and scrambled across to the passenger side, yanking at the handle. It wouldn't open. Something was pulling on it from outside. The dragging sound came again, this time right against the car, circling slowly. When it reached the rear, the whole car shifted slightly, like someone had leaned their weight onto it. My coffee thermos rolled across the floor and clanged into the door. Then, nothing. Silence so complete, I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I don't remember deciding to try the ignition again, but my hand was on the key and I twisted. The car roared to life instantly. Headlights back on, radio blasting static. The rearview mirror showed nothing behind me. No eyes, no figure, nothing. I floored it, taking the curves faster than I should have, desperate to see another set of normal headlights. When I finally reached a gas station on the outskirts of the next town, I pulled in and sat there for almost 10 minutes before getting out. My legs were shaking so badly, I could barely stand. That's when I saw it. On the driver's side door, smeared across the glass, in a greasy, almost translucent film, was the outline of two perfect circles, about the size of fists. Eye prints. I'm taking the long way home from now on.